evening, everyone, and welcome to the Maitland City Council meeting of June 24th, 2024. Please, everyone, if you would mind, remember to silence your phones or devices that you have with you. And also, if anybody would like to speak this evening or any event or any of the items that come up, please fill out a speaker card if you would. I think we have some outside, and we also have some right up here at the podium. It'll just help us keep the minutes better and let us know who's what order to call people in and so forth. So that would help us greatly. Yes?
I'd like to ask you, does that include if we want to ask a question about something you commented on? We won't know until you comment.
Right. We have a comment period, but we don't have a question and answer period. So typically the way we handle that is if somebody comes to the podium and wants to ask a comment, and yes, we would like a speaker card for a comment, a question. We'll take all the questions, all the comments, and when the period's over, then we'll discuss the questions that were raised. Okay. All right. We have a quorum. So let's begin this evening, if we would, as we usually do, with a moment of silence. And I would like for us to remember, if we would, a member of our community who's untimely has left us, Howard Rhoda, who was a very dedicated public servant, served on our Parks and Recreation Board for several years and did lots of amazing things in the community. So let's keep her in our thoughts this evening. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now, if you would please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Our first order of business this evening is a public hearing declaring intent to use the uniform method of collecting non-ad valorem assessments. Lori, would you please read the resolution title and purpose?
Resolution number 11-2024, a resolution of the City of Maitland, Orange County, Florida, electing to use the uniform method of collecting non-ad valorem special assessments levied within the capital project assessment area of Domrick Hills, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4, as established for resolution number 6-2024, stating the need for such levy, providing for mailing of this resolution, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Lori. Mark, City Manager, would you please introduce the item for us?
Yes, sir. As you recall, resolution number 6/2024 was adopted back in May of 2024 that created the capital project assessment area for the Domrick Hills phase 1 through 4 sanitary sewer improvement project. The purpose of this was to defray a portion of the total capital expense among 431 benefited properties. As it's laid out in the staff report, you can see that the total cost of just the assessed improvements, which are just the sewer lines and laterals, is $13,310,000 and change. The assessment that is being proposed is $4,320, non-ad valorem with plus interest. The non-ad valorem assessment, if not paid in advance, would show up on the 2025 tax bill and be collected over 10 equal yearly installments of $600.93. This is a total of 14% of the improvement cost. The remainder of that is absorbed by the remaining ratepayers of the City of Maitland that are hooked into our water and sewer system. I've also outlined the total cost of the capital improvement for the entire area, which included the septic to sewer conversion, which are the pipes that are going in the ground and the laterals that are connecting to the homes. Relocation of lift station number 1, which was an additional $2,600,000, which is not included as part of this assessment. And the sidewalks and traffic calming in phase 1 at $379,000 and in phase 2 at $1.5 million. So the total cost of all the improvements that are going into the neighborhood are almost $18 million, and this doesn't include the design or construction engineering inspection. So the total investment in the neighborhood is close to $20 million for this project. So as set forth in Section 197.3632 of the Florida statute, City Council must hold an advertised public hearing to declare its intent to use the uniform method of collecting non-ad valorem assessments. The purpose of the public hearing is to consider the adoption of Ordinance 11/2024, authorizing the city to use that uniform method to collect these funds. The notice of intent to inform was advertised 4 consecutive weeks in the Orlando Sentinel, and notice was sent by U.S. mail to all property owners within the area boundaries. So with that, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. I would just, as an aside, on the fiscal impact of this, the assessment of that $4,320 per home equates to 3/100ths, a little more than 3/100ths of 1% of the total cost of the project per home.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mark. Does anyone on council have any questions for Mr. Regatine on the process? Okay, seeing none, let's open it for the public comment period on the ordinance. If anybody from the public would like to be heard on this matter, please approach the podium and give us your name and address, and we'd be happy to hear your comments or questions.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy Skoltock?
Nancy Skoltock, I live on Saginaw Trail in Phase 2. To my knowledge, each and every one of you were elected at large, which meant that you represent the entire community. Not just Lake Civilian, not just Domrick Estates, not just Domrick Hills. You make decisions and commitments on behalf of the entire community, the entire city of Maitland. And we feel, or I feel, that it is completely unfair that we, the 431 households, have to bear any financial responsibility to this above and beyond the fact that we have to pay for the connection to the sewer system, which is running right now between $8,000 and $10,000. We have to put in a separate water meter for our sprinkler systems, and then our monthly bills are going to either double or triple because now we're paying sewage. And in your notice of public hearing, you claim that that's a benefit to us. I have lived in Maitland on Saginaw for 26 years. I have never had a single problem with my septic system, ever. And if you're doing this, and you made this commitment on behalf of this community to have better groundwater because of the septic systems, that's a commitment y'all made. And we are bearing a big financial burden on it, just connecting and doing all that other stuff. It's not fair to pick out 431 residences. This is a community project, just like if it was new boat ramps or new lighting in the parks or any other improvement you do to this entire community, whether those other people use it or not, everybody pays for it. Everybody supports the community to make it a better place, so that everybody will benefit from the better groundwater once we get rid of our septic tanks. I just don't understand. You're trying to sell this as a benefit. I don't see it as a benefit. It's a financial drain. I just retired. I have single women on my street. I have young families with children on my street, and you're giving them a year to connect to it. This is just, and then if you have even driven through Phase 2, I can't even imagine that you would subject your residents to live in the state that you have left it in. And I am sure there are so many cost overruns right now because of the sidewalks. I heard a rumor that they don't pass inspection, they have to be ripped up, it's going to add money to this. That's not our problem, that's not our fault. You made this commitment, for the community, and the community as a whole needs to support it.
Thank you, Mrs. Goldtop. We also have a speaker card from Robert Maitland.
Right here.
Okay.
There's a lot of information, so I should have got this to you sooner.
Okay, we'll give it to the clerk and we'll.
Well, this is when I had my article in the paper, how much I really love Monte Carlo. And this is the first time this was put in, and they put up one in the second time. Now I got two smaller ones, and this is an example of a light in Winter Springs in one of the new subdivisions. This is a street light, so I'm switching subjects a little bit. I've got this.
Okay, sir, if you could step up to the podium, we'll
All right,
hear you, but we'll be happy to look at the photographs as well.
you.
Thank you. Okay, anytime you're ready, sir.
Okay, well, I completely agree with the other lady about the sewer, but there's multiple problems beyond that for me. You know, this is still going on, and I had all kinds of problems originally when they went through. I was really nice to the contractor, and they did minimal damage to my yard, but the owner at the other end of my block, they completely ripped his yard apart, destroyed his irrigation system, and they reached the point where they actually sold their house and moved. They were so distressed of what was going on. And so I don't know if this contractor is doing really that much better than the other one. The first one, they ripped the whole street up, you know. I used to live in Kentucky in the early 60s, and they carefully cut the street and they put the sewer in. I was only about 11 or 12 in that picture there. And they even did blasting in front of my house. They did it carefully. I was about 11 or 12. So I was very concerned about my lawn and garden. So I repaired my irrigation system. I forgot, I lost track how many times. And they didn't do too much damage to my lawn, but it did some damage. And, you know, the big thing, though, going to another subject, the lighting that was installed, it's been more than 3 years, I guess, now. And the lighting that they put up in front, I have a unique situation where these lights were put up mostly at intersections where streets came into Tustin Aurora, so lights facing down the street. But mine is facing right at my house. And it's a commercial light, it's not a residential light. There's a photo of a well-designed residential light. So that was probably the cheapest thing that could have been done, with put these things up there. They're LED things. I know I worked in Winter Springs, they put one up before I had my accidents. I've been out of work for a while. And they put one of those up, but it was on 434. It wasn't in a residential area. So it not only lights up my whole front of my house, there's a letter from a attorney and also from my doctor about the light. I don't want to, it's kind of personal, so I don't want to discuss too much about that, but I used to go outside at night, and it's very relaxing and relieve stress in the dark, you know. I can't do that. I haven't been able to do that until recently. Duke Energy has disconnected all of them because they're replacing all the poles and the lights. So now it's back to where it was 3 years ago temporarily. And I assume they're going to reconnect those things. I just noticed, I was at 2606 Tuscarora, that's a house that flooded. You know, she said it, or they said it flooded twice. And I noticed there's one of those lights going, well, it's not facing lightning, it was, they sharply turned it to the right, and it's kind of pointing down Tuscarora. I had that happen, and mine's still facing me, and I wrote all kinds of emails. One of them was the city manager, and he asked me what am I emailing him for. So it's just really upsetting about the light. That's the big thing for me right now. And,
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Belo.
all right.
Thank you for your information. Do you want to hold on to this, even though?
Yeah, everything but the, yeah, you can keep the, except that.
Yeah, looks like something to keep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Belo. Yes, sir.
Luke Williams, 4210 Chippewa Trail. Question for everybody here, since you're all business people. Why didn't we, or you, try to find contractors to give us prices, like I guess they did in Seminole, to do the hookups from the drains or the septic tanks to the street? I've got full estimates. Maybe with $8,000 to $10,000, you must have one septic tank that must be in the front yard. I got one in the backyard, one in the front yard. One estimate from the pier is $21,000. Emerald Plumbing is $28,000. I don't think they're going to get called. And then Brownies is $18,000. They want to run a 2-inch line from the backyard to the front yard. I can think code is 4 inches, I'm not positive. But then they have to put a pump in the backyard too. None of these companies repair any of the irrigation. They don't repair the power line that's in the ground, running power out to the pergola and whatnot with the power in the backyard. And I'm curious as to why did you, in your great planning, try to get contractors that would give us a decent price, or give us a price for doing a whole shooting match, maybe we're going to rather than us spending hours on the phone trying to make appointments, for them to come out and give us an estimate. And it's interesting that we have such a variety, and I realize that, and one of the companies told me that we're kind of shocking to us because we don't have a choice. That's one statement from the contract. So that's my kind of question. And then of course you can go over to Tuscarora and that poor road. I guess none of you live in Donald, or if you do, you probably don't drive the road. But that part of Tuscarora that's been towed up for, I think, over a year. I mean, it's great on your automobiles. And I think that's enough on me, but you know, why couldn't we get contractors that give us prices that are reasonable, not in a position that we have to? I don't mind a 4320 hookup. I'm not glad to get it soon. But how many times trying to run it from my backyard to the front yard, am I going to have to call the plumber probably to get it unplugged? Because that's 154 feet.
Thank
Thank you.
you, sir. Yes.
Jill Jennings, 2600 Mohawk. I don't quite understand this 4,300, whatever it is. Can we pay it up front still? Are we going to have the option of both the taxes, or can we pay it up front? And number two, when all this came about was when the annexation happened of Maitland. And at that time, we were told if we had an environmentally safe septic system, we did not have to hook up unless we sold the home and the new people would have to hook. Now all of a sudden, you're giving us a year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jennings. Anybody else? Sure. Please come up. And if you'd like to form a line or anybody else has comments, please feel free.
My name is Pat Hewitt. I'm at 2606 Chippewa Trail. I just have a couple questions. When do you plan on finishing the sidewalks? I mean, my yard is destroyed because it's just been sitting there with no irrigation. I try to take care of it so it looks nice, and I can't get an answer one way or another when you guys are going to finish things up.
Yeah, well, we'll take care of that when the full public comment period is wrapped up, and then we'll go through the questions.
Okay. The other thing I have a question about is there's a lot of ponding that's going on the road out there from stormwater, not draining. And I don't know what you plan on doing with that, because if you come through and repave that road the way it is right now, you're just going to have a problem come a couple of years from now. We did this once before where we came through and we repaved the roads, but the water stands on the roads and then the asphalt just peels up and then falls apart, gets tracked, and then we end up with holes and ruts and what have you. I would suggest that you guys do a little bit more engineering when it comes to repairing the road and stuff out there before you just come through and mill it up and decide to do whatever you're doing. So we don't end up having to pay for this all over again. I'm trying to understand the interest rate. How did you come up with the interest rate that we have to pay? Is that based on something? Is the city paying for that from the state or whatever revolving fund that you're getting money from? How did you come up with 6.5%? Let's see. And then what is the plan for the traffic calming on Thunder? I've heard something about you guys are going to put in a circle of some sort on Thunder. I mean, it's less than a quarter of a mile or an eighth of a mile long, and I've heard that you're going to put some kind of circle there on the road, but I don't know, because you guys don't share anything with us as far as, you know, what the plans are. Sidewalks, you came through, dug everything up. It's a disaster out there. Weeds growing everywhere. The irrigation's torn up. So I'd like to know what you got planned as far as the traffic maintenance that you plan on installing.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Hewitt. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
I will.
Yeah, please come on up.
My name is Ann Osisek. I live at 2155 Huron Trail. As of this past Memorial Day, I've lived there for 49 years. So I think I know what I'm talking about. My question is, how many of you live in Donner Hills? Any of you? No. So you don't have any idea of what's going on over there. It's horrible. Number one, they moved us to the next step instead of number 3. So they have detour signs up. People are using Huron Trail and the street behind us, Chinook, and it's like Daytona 500. And I mean, I almost got run over tonight when we left to come over here. This young man comes down in a black pickup truck. He comes every day speeding down the street, and our daughter, who was in law enforcement, she stopped him, and she gave him the what for, and he said, yes, ma'am. And so I don't know if that's going to help, but I am very disturbed because this morning I called the chief of police. I left a message. Nobody returned my call. Every time I call Parks and Rec for another problem, nobody returns my call. It's like 49 years and this is how you treat your citizens? And the other thing is that lift station on Tuscarora, every morning I walk my dog. The smell from that is horrible. The neighbors have called about it and they said, oh yeah, we went and did something, treated it. It's still bad. What's it going to be like after the sewer project's finished? That's what I want to know. Is it going to be worse? I'll bet. And the other thing is, the street I live on is very short. We are 81 and 82 years old. I'm mobile. I can get around. My husband is on a walker. So when they do our street, how are we going to get in and out of our driveway, and where am I going to park my car? I don't want to park it on Tuscarora, and I don't want to park it on Tacoma the way the people are driving. So I like look between a rock and a hard place. And then let's talk about the money. At our age, where are we going to go? We can't sell our house right now. I don't want to go to an old people's home. I want to stay in that house. I love that neighborhood. But it feels very frustrating to me that this city does not listen or respond. Thank you.
There's someone in the back who wants to.
Robert Blake Kelly, 2172 Chippewa Trail. I agree with a lot of everything that's been said so far, but I just had a couple questions. Reading the Florida statute and the city ordinances, and that the point was brought up, is having an option. Because it says in the city ordinance that the Director of Public Works can approve if your septic system is permitted and safe. So my system's permitted, it's safe, it's functional. Again, these contractor quotes, again, I'm getting 10 to 22,000 is what I'm hearing in the neighborhood as well. And I'm in phase 3, so it's yet to be a problem, but that's a lot to bite off, and even in a year time frame. So having the option, if you have a system that's working and you can put that off and plan how this all shakes out, would be good to know if we have an option there.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Justin Lockren, live at 2303 Tuscarora. I'm a new resident, relatively, to Delmark Hills. We moved here because we love the neighborhood. My wife went to Delmark Elementary, she teaches there. So, my family lives in the neighborhood, and we love the neighborhood, but ever since we've moved in, we've not gotten any communication as to developments that are going on. Everything that I've learned regarding they were going to tear up the whole right side of our yard and tear up our irrigation system, which I incurred $300-400 to get that fixed, which the city said was going to repay me. That still has not happened. I've tried multiple times. I've called multiple folks. I think I can speak for everybody on this. We don't get any communication. I mean, I'm coming up on 2 years in Delmark Hills. Everything that I know about this whole transformation from our septic system to the new water pipes, which would be great. I'd love to be on city water. I used to live in Winter Park. Things were wonderful. Can't say it's been the same since I've lived here. Coming up on 2 years in the neighborhood in July, I've not received one piece of communication regarding this whole plan. I was told it was $5,000 to hook up. Everything I've gotten is from hearsay, from neighbors, and I've heard crazy things about if I don't get this done within the year. I just found out last week I'm in phase 1. That's good to know, except for the fact that I now understand that as of July 1st, I'll have a lien on my home that by the city, if I'm due to the Florida statute that you just stated. And I'm not really sure again, I have so many questions, I don't even know where to begin, other than, to the other lady's point, I was also told by the owner that was selling it, if you have a perfectly good septic system that works perfectly fine, you have a great drain line, everything's good, the city cannot force you to switch to city water. But I've heard 10 different stories from my different neighbors. And we have several of us on Tuscarora. By the way, Tuscarora, gotta love going up and down, right? Potholes, bulldozers. I don't know when they're going to stop. It seems like every day there's something new going on. And we love our community. We pay a lot to live there. It is a nice community. I got several questions. Where is the clear line of communication from y'all? I really couldn't tell you anything other than what I've gathered from my neighbors. And Blake, who just spoke, brought me here tonight because he said, I think you're in phase one. Our neighbor, Mike, says you're going to get a lien on your house by July 1st if you haven't switched over. So, I don't understand how I can have zero communication from the city. Not a flyer on my door, not a piece of mail. Sure, you don't have my email address. May or may not even know that I've lived there for 2 years. But I don't mind. I would love to be on city water. I'm not sure where you came up with the 4320. A lot of folks are on fixed incomes. My income has decreased thanks to the 20% inflation that we've incurred over the last couple of years. So we're under a lot of pressure, aside from paying for our groceries and our Duke Energy going up 50%. I don't know. So I guess what I'm looking for is some direction going forward. I'd like to know what I just need to have the facts. I'm a good citizen, a law-abiding citizen. I want to do the right thing. I want to do the right thing for my family, but at the same time, I couldn't tell you what I'm supposed to do right now. My first response is no. It's like if you want to tell me I have to drive an electric vehicle. No, it's not going to happen. It's America. So just want to get some guidance, some clear understanding. Again, I couldn't tell you how am I supposed to pay the 4320. I've heard our neighbors saying up to $30,000 to get a septic company. I just repiped the house last year. That was $12,000. It wasn't in my budget, so I need to better understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
I'll be brief. Anita Williams, 2210 Chippewa.
You got 3 minutes. You don't have to be brief.
I can be brief, but not belabored.
I'm sorry, your name again?
Anita Williams, 2210 Chippewa. Question, water. I know in our neighborhood we pay Castleberry for water. We don't pay Maitland for anything but garbage pickup. Is that changing? People are throwing the water word around. So I'll still have Castleberry.
We'll take all the questions and we'll mark them all the way.
Maitland will be this sewer problem and everything involved with that. As far as right now, this is all Maitland is going to increase.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, is there anybody else? Anybody there? Please come on up. You don't have to wait for me, actually, you all to line up here.
I wasn't planning on speaking. Name is David Stump, live at 607 Under Trail. And I guess the question was in my mind back there, come up here. We keep talking about the 1 year period before starting payment. Now I've gotten that information, but also in the past, I've gotten information from who I thought were knowledgeable people, that the 1 year requirement did not begin until the final phase was completed, until the project, the entire project, was finished, which would be the end of phase 4. Now, with you advancing this into 2025, you won't even be finished with phase 2 probably. So, just a little clarification on that, some comment, go into that. The only frustration I've got right now is this sidewalk issue. We didn't ask for it. It was just kind of given to us, not that I'm aware of. They just showed up one day and started putting sidewalks in. And it's a fiasco. They haven't done my driveway because I'm getting a permit for some exception. But the neighbor next to me and the neighbor on the other side of me are two that I know of that, like we were talking about earlier, need to be torn up and redone. And I'm sure that's not cheap to do. It's taken quite a while to get that started again, but they were not ADA compliant. And understanding is because they had 3 levels. They were in actual levels. 2 of them were the contractor and 1 was an engineer. And the engineer had the fancy technical electronic one level. But they went with the manual levels like you and I would have in our garages. And it turned out they shouldn't have done that. So, again, a little bit of frustration showing up there. Whatever comment you can make the most. That's it.
Okay, let me just so I understand that question. So is it mainly about the driveways you're interested in?
No, my biggest question is the first part, the
Okay.
start of the cost.
When is the
Why is
year?
it not at the end of the project as opposed to all of a sudden 2025?
Okay.
I don't see this project being completed by, not at the rate that it's been built.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Snow.
Linda Kozak, I live at 2046 Mohawk Trail. And I'd like to ask a question about the gentleman, the second person who spoke. Are lights part of this sewer project? No. That's a separate thing. So just out of curiosity, we're new to Maitland, and I agree with pretty much everything everybody said, with the exception of I really was pretty excited about moving to Maitland. I thought I was moving up. Now I'm questioning that, because this is not kind of the governmental group that I expected. We've had some pretty good interactions with Maitland since we've been building our home, and it's been wonderful. But out of this meeting, it doesn't feel as if anyone's listening. And the one that broke my heart was the gentleman. If any of you guys had a light shining on your home all night, I imagine that would be fixed within a week. I really do. I just can't imagine living like that. That's not the Maitland I thought I was going to get.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kozak.
My name is Shoshana Sotomayor. I'm at 2411 Chinook. So my question is about the document that you guys most recently sent home about this meeting. It said that the 14 or the 4,000, whatever the tax payment, it was going to start January of 2025. But then there was other information online that said that you don't have to begin paying that until you've been onto the, like you're on the septic. So are we going to have to start paying in January, or is it going to be when we actually get onto the septic, or I'm sorry, the sewer system? Because like we are on, well, we were supposed to be phase 3, which is strange since our road was skipped on Chinook. Now we've been pushed to phase 4, which probably won't be for like another, I don't know, 8 months from now. But I have to start paying in January, so that just doesn't make sense. So I would like some clarification. Who has to begin paying in January? Is it everyone, or is it just the people that are already on the sewer? Or, yeah, sewer, right? And can you not go onto the sewer? Or I guess you're going to get the meeting.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Sotomayor. Anybody else have any comments or questions for us? Going once, going twice. Okay, let's close the public comment period. And I guess the thing to do would be to go through questions that we have. We have some discussion on this perhaps. Mark, you and I have been writing furiously, and I think other people have too. Do you want to go, or shall I just ask the questions that I got?
I guess we'll probably have the same questions, the same order, so I'll try to pick up on anything you might have missed.
Okay.
Unless you want me to go down my list.
Yeah, if you go down your list, and I'll make sure that I've
Okay, the first question I saw was that why didn't the city go out and find or hire contractors to do the septic to sewer conversion? And the answer to that is that wasn't part of the scope of services. That's part of the homeowner's responsibility. There are other communities that have different demographics and different funding sources. That did
Speak
do
up,
that.
please. Please speak louder. It's hard to hear.
I'm sorry.
Somebody speaking on you before we made you.
It just a matter of where I was looking. But thank you for that. So what I was saying was that that wasn't part of the scope of this project. There are other communities with other demographics and other funding sources that did include contractors' costs. That wasn't part of our scope. That's why the individuals are going on to or having to find their own contractors to do this. And sort of to dovetail into that, that's sort of part of the reason why the assessment is relatively low, which is the hearing tonight. The $4,000 assessment, we understood that there was going to be a cost to the residents to hook into the system. For assessments like this, for sewer assessments, the city has the ability to charge 100% of the cost to the residents because there's a benefit to the properties. What the city council did was chose to assess a much smaller amount, understanding that there were going to be costs to the residents for that. And $4,000 came to, that's an equivalent to what it would cost to connect anyway for a connection fee. So that's where that number came from. So there's sort of a two-phase answer to that. That's how that number came up. That's
Okay, let me ask you this, Mark. So I think you mentioned this in the introduction earlier also. What is the amount that the residents will pay, and what is the amount that the community as a whole will pay?
the amount that the residents will pay in total is $1.9 million, more or less, depending on who pays up front and who chooses to do the assessment. The total cost of just the sewage portion of this project, again, which is just the sewer lines in the ground and the laterals, is $13.3 million. So that's 14% of that, of the cost that is being assessed, that the rest of our rate base, the ratepayers throughout the rest of the city are paying that $11 million difference.
So the 431 homes, more or less, pay 14% of the total cost of this?
For that, just for that assessment, which doesn't include the lift station or the other improvements that are going in the ground.
Okay. And while we're on that subject of the cost of 4320, I hope that answered the question from how we got there. There was a question about how we got to the interest rate on that as well.
Yeah, and the interest rate is actually, we put the interest rate out at 6.5% when we were doing phase one, because that was prime plus 1 at the time, which is the same interest rate we've done for other assessments in the city, is prime plus 1. Since that time, obviously, interest rates have changed, but since we made that commitment to the residents to keep the prime plus 1 at our initial hearings on this, we've carried that through. Right now, prime is about 8.5%. The federal funds rate is about 5.5%. So it's a fair interest rate in the times we're in right now.
Okay, thank you.
Next question I had is, can it be paid up front? The answer is yes. We have a mechanism that you can pay connect the assessment fee up front with the building permit, or you can pay it individually. There'll be a resolution coming forward at the next meeting to establish those payment options.
Okay. And while our second speaker, Mr. Belo, had an issue with the lights, and I know that's not really dealing with this ordinance and anything, but I would like to answer the question. As far as I understand it, that's Duke Energy deals with the lights, right? That's not a city function. It's not a city.
No. And some of you might not have been on city council when this occurred, but 3 or 4, about maybe 5 years ago, we had a group of residents in the Domerick Estates and Domerick Hills area approach the city council regarding safety issues throughout the neighborhood. They put together a committee to identify unsafe intersections throughout the area. 11 street lights were installed throughout Domerick Hills and Domerick Estates. This was one of those lights. So that occurred quite some time ago, that decision.
So that's 11 street lights citywide?
Just in the Domerick Hills, and yeah, because there were questions regarding bus stops. There was unlighted bus stops. unsafe intersection, crosswalks that weren't lit at night, so those were the areas that additional lighting was requested from at the time.
Okay, but that, and our involvement in that was we were responding to residents asking for those lights to be installed there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, the next question I had was the hookup requirements. There was a couple of questions on the hookup requirements. In general, once the sewer system is available, there's 4 phases. Once it's available, our rules within our codes and DEP rules, which mirror each other, say that you have to hook up within 1 year of sewer availability. As we know up here, and as I'll try to explain to you, what sewer extensions become a priority for the state of Florida, that there's a goal to have all unsewered urban areas sewered within a time frame. We have to have a plan to put that together. Kim Tracy, our Public Works Director, and her staff are putting together that so we can get that. This is basically the first phase, but there are 4 unsewered areas in the city. This is the first phase of that. And the rules state that once the sewer becomes available, once the lines are cleared for inspection by DEP, you have 1 year to hook in. That's DEP rule and the state rule, and we mirrored the state's rule on that.
So if you're in phase 1 and sewage becomes functional and available, whenever phase 1 comes online, then you have 1 year from that date.
Yes, a notice is sent out that you have a year from that date to hook in. Then we send out reminders. We're getting ready to send out reminders to this.
So the notices are mailed directly to the homeowners, and reminders are sent directly to the homeowners.
Everything to add, Kim?
Yes, the notices for phase 1 were sent out, or they're dated October 9th of last year. I actually sent them certified. We did have several people that, after several attempts, did not go pick them up. But we did send them out to everyone in phase 1 and gave them a year from that date.
I never received anything, so I Just sad.
Okay, so we have sent out notices to everybody, every single one of those homes by certified mail. Some have picked it up, some have not. Perhaps somebody got missed, and we can make that right.
Yes.
But yes, so we got it. Thank you, Kim.
As far as the question regarding plans for finishing the sidewalks that are under construction now,
Yes.
It's part of the construction.
It's part of the construction. They are getting back on that the week of July 1st. They're coming back. I think they're starting on Thunder to finish up what is there. So they should be moving along. And I know it was stated with regards to anything that has to be ripped up. If they don't do it correctly, it does have to be ripped up. We do not pay for that. That's on the contractor to meet the specs. So as they come through, there's a lot of grade changes in there that get a little bit challenging, but we're not going to accept something that doesn't meet the specs of the contract.
Okay.
And I
So
guess
that goes to the sidewalk question. So the sidewalks it sounds like on Thunder are going to be, you expect them next week to be back out there and begin again from that? Okay. And, yeah.
And on that same note, the question regarding ponding in the road, obviously the roads are a mess out there. Construction's messing, especially installing sewer in a developed area is messy.
We could keep it down, and it's difficult for some people to hear. Did you need us to speak louder? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the ticklies.
All right. Yeah, just swallow the mic there.
So as far as ponding and future ponding in the road, once the roads are repaved, there are specs for that. They're going to be milled and repaved. It is a mess out there now. It's construction will be a mess when it happens, but there are specs for the roads. Those will be inspected just as the sidewalks are. If they're not right, then the contractor will be required to make the project right.
Right. Yeah, so I guess in layman's terms, you often see roads that are repaved and you come back and you see ponding in certain areas and it ponds up against the curb, and you understand that will undermine the integrity of the asphalt over time. And so when that is brought to our attention, and also when you go out and do your quality checks, you check that, and what do you have, a year warranty
Yes.
on that, for them to come back out and iron it out and get it right. So we have a year warranty on most of this type of work.
Yes,
And
we do.
it is checked, and they come back out at their own cost and make it right. And if you all see something that's not right, report it to us, and we can bring it to their attention.
There was a question on Thunder Trail and whether there was a traffic circle there. No, there were no traffic circles included in the traffic calming in anywhere in the city.
So, and that just means no median construction?
There's no traffic circle, is there?
I think you might have been, the traffic circle might have been a larger description than you perhaps meant. You might have meant traffic calming with a interior median build out? Is that?
Thunder? I don't have the plans in front of me.
I looked through them, that's not one that I recall, but anybody who would want to discuss with us, we've tried to put out the flyers with the project managers, email a number on it, so we would encourage anybody to reach out to Ethan Hand, who's our project manager.
He's very loud about returning calls and messages.
Okay, so
then I've heard that from a lot of people.
We will follow up on that, because we are keeping a log of everyone who's calling in.
But you'll
make
check and look, see if there's anything in the constructive median issue in Thunder?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
There are a couple questions on small from the lift station. It's a slightly more complicated explanation of that, but the lift station itself, we built in conjunction with our local wastewater transmission authority. The wastewater transmission, we don't treat our own sewage here in the city. We don't have a sewage treatment plant. We send some of our sewage to the city of Altamont Springs for treatment, some to the city of Orlando for treatment. The transmission authority that takes our sewage from Maitland to the city of Orlando is South Seminole and North Orange County Wastewater Transmission Authority. We just call them the authority. They are responsible for all transmission. So we jointly built that lift station. It realistically belongs to the Wastewater Transmission Authority. They are aware of the problems with the smell of the lift station. They've had their engineers working on it. They have recently hired a new set of engineers to figure out what was going on. So what they've done is sort of taken the least costly treatment ability to treat the smell of the station, and they're working up the ladder to see what's going to work. But the old engineers who are working on that have handed this off to a new set of engineers that have a little more experience with lift stations, so that's in progress. It's in our city. We are the closest government to people. Nobody really knows what SNOWATA is, what the Wastewater Transmission Authority is, but we are in constant communication with the executive director and his staff over there. He's aware of those problems, and we're continuing to work on them. But ultimately, the fix is from the Wastewater Transmission Authority.
So we're working with the Transmission Authority to resolve the smell issue. Hopefully it gets done sooner rather than later. But we're nagging.
We are aware of the situation, and we would like to get it resolved as quickly as anybody, because the calls come to us first. As far as on the street-by-street basis, as the sewage goes into the streets and neighbors are impacted, we talk to them on an individual basis. The project manager goes to talk to them about what it's going to look like in terms of the impacts on them, how to get their driveway, garbage, and things like that. Kim, would you like to fill in that?
We have a full-time construction inspector out there that works for our consultant, and she is the one going out along with either the project manager or the superintendent. Sometimes it's difficult to find people at home, so a lot of that we need to encourage everybody, to reach out if there are questions that we can follow up on and answer.
And could you address the situation of a functioning septic system and why they are required to look into the sewer system?
Our code, one second, let me pull it up. Our code does give,
Kim, is your mic on, or are you just, my policy is closer?
Is it on?
I think it's on. We can tap it up and
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Because I can speak louder too. Okay. Okay. So it does give the option of giving an extension provided that the property has an approved type of septic tank, which just, I think in 2021 changed. It's an advanced treatment, so unless somebody's had their septic tank changed out within the last few years, it's not likely that it would meet the DEP what's on their approved list. I did consult with FDEP and ask them, when it actually was talking about the health, welfare, and convenience of the public, which the state statute addresses the same type of language in there. And what DEP looks at it as, we are in an area that has a BMAP, a Basin Action Plan, and that they would consider that a health issue because we are in a BMAP.
Right. So as I understand that, there is an option for extension if you have such a septic system that is of a quality that they would accept, and they've upgraded their standards now to an advanced treatment. And so it's not the standard that it was 20 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever. Their standard is for a higher quality of septic systems. So ours don't meet that, unless it does, unless somebody's put one in since DEP upgraded their.
You wouldn't even have Domrick Hills now as part of your tax. Because of the annexation, that's why people voted.
Okay. We're just answering the questions that we've got, and we won't. So we do have the option to extend, but only if that extension would include a system of a certain quality. And if somebody's got that, that's great, but it's not likely that somebody would put a new system in the last 3 years.
Next question I had was...
But I would also just, the policy for having that in there, this helps me to understand why that is. You have the only way to get a functioning system in front of everybody's house is to spend a lot of money. If you're going to have a new sewer system, it's going to cost $20 million. And in order to make that pencil out, people have to participate. And so if the city's going to, it's not just the city's choice to go in there and do that. We've got a BMAP, we've got DEP requirements. And so, getting people off of septic and onto sewer is something that is not just a feel-good item for us. I mean, it's the law. So we're moving in that direction.
How long would the extension be? Because at this point, it's probably cheaper if they run.
I'm sorry, ma'am. There's an extension option if anybody has a system of a certain quality.
One put in, that fancy one.
If you do have a new one put in, then we have to contact Kim and whoever, in Public Works, so we can talk about individual systems. But in order to create a large system for the public good, it's going to cost everybody to come in and start paying rates on that. So that's what the whole policy of this is. If we're going to lay a system out in front of your house, everybody's got a year to hook up to it, and that's not something that Maitland created. I mean, that's a statewide standard. It's probably a national standard. So that's where that requirement comes from.
But you said Maitland had 4 neighborhoods.
We're not having an open discussion at this point. We're trying to answer the questions one by one.
The next question I had was, is the water service changing? Castleberry currently serves a large part of the Domrick Hills neighborhood. The answer is no, water service is not changing. We have a interlocal agreement with the city of Castleberry to collect the sewage fees for us. So you'll see your bill still coming from Castleberry with the sewer charge on it, and then they remit that money to the city on a monthly basis. So
All right, so people who have Castleberry water will continue to have Castleberry water. You'll have Maitland sewer from here on in.
Okay, and I think we answered the lighting question, not part of this project. And it seemed like there was a bit of confusion between the assessment and the hook-in requirement. The assessment will start on the 2025 tax bill. The contractor's scheduled to be done that long before that assessment hits the tax rolls, versus the billing requirement, which if you're not hooked in within a year, then you are going to be billed as if you are hooked in. So people just don't linger out there to not convert their septic to sewer. So that's the requirement, is that billing can start within 1 year of notice, regardless if you're hooked in, to encourage compliance. As far as leaning property is a last resort. It's a code enforcement process, and DEP said they would work with us on that, but what we strive for is compliance, as always. That our code enforcement division will work with individual property owners to bring them into compliance versus being punitive. So that's always a path of last resort. As long as people are showing goodwill and moving toward connection, that's the barometer we use to deal with all code enforcement cases in the city.
Right, so there's no lien going to be placed on anybody's property until it becomes an issue of non-compliance over a long period of time. So this is not, no liens automatically are going to go in this system.
No, unless you don't pay your tax bill.
Right, well, then, yeah, that's...
Unless it's a different type of lien, that's not a lien we're assessing, but if you don't pay your taxes, then property appraiser or tax collector will lien your property.
So you'll be billed 1 year after sewer is available to you, as if you were a sewer customer, whether or not you're on it. And the assessment will come in January 2025?
Yes.
No, not January 2025. So it's the 2025 tax bill. Your 2025 tax bill comes from the tax collector in November of 2025. You have from November of 2025 to March 31st of 2026 to pay your 25 tax bill. It's not January 2025.
Thank you for that clarification. Let's see. That extinguishes my list, Mayor.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things that's kind of hovering over us this evening, it was kind of more of a theme than a question, I guess, is, the communication and what we need to do to make sure everybody knows what's going on, what to expect when things will be billed. And I know that, Kim, you've been busy on that. I know, Robert, you've been busy on that. I know, Mark, you've been busy on that. Can you give us some kind of, not a long explanation, but a good explanation of what we're doing, what the outreach efforts have been, and what we need to do going forward?
I can start with the beginning. And I can see where there might be some concern of some of the folks that moved in since this project started. This project started 4 or 5 years ago when we started having the neighborhood outreach for phase 1. So we had sent out notices to the property owners, had a neighborhood meeting, and this is for phase 1. We did the same thing for phase 2 through 4. We had city staff there, design engineers, contractor, City of Castleberry showed up to answer questions on how that connection was going to work. We had our utility billing folks there to answer questions on how utility billing was going to work. So people could circulate through, get all their questions answered. All the plans were available, all the construction plans were available. So people were asking questions regarding where their hookup would be, how that would work, and we were trying to address those, and then taking notes and getting back to people on those. So we did that for phase 1 and 2. We continue in terms of notifying people of their requirement to hook up. We do that by mail as required by our code and statute. We have ongoing communication in the field with our project managers and construction engineers. So,
And, we've had, just like the flyer that everybody received tonight, we've been trying to get those out whenever there's a big change. When we switch the phases, try to get that notification out.
So what was that flyer, Kim?
The last one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just Yeah.
And these are mailed out, or these are flyers that are just available, that you hand out?
Well, it depends on the communication.
Yeah.
If it's project-wide, they're mailed out. If it's individual portions of the project, like when the MOT changes and people's access is going to be created, we'll do flyers and door knocks in the direct area to drop things off and let people know things are going to change and access is going to change. I just use the term MOT. That's maintenance of traffic, which doesn't make any sense to me either. It's just basically your detouring system through the neighborhood. We knew this was going to be a detouring challenge, and it has been because of the limited access to the neighborhood. So the detours are up and they do change on a fairly regular basis as the contractor moves through the project. The detouring changes to follow the construction. So we try to get out notices on that, especially when there's major intersections closed. We use all of our methods of communication there, which even cast that to a wider audience, which you see on our newsletters and our social media feeds and things like that. Otherwise, we focus on the neighborhood area and changes that happen there. And sometimes that is just walking door to door with flyers and knocking on doors and leaving flyers.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I think we all do. I think it's very useful exercise for us up here to hear directly from you all. And I hope it's useful for you all to know you have access to us. It may be frustrating at times to get through to people. You know, a phone call or an email should do it. And if it's not, then, you know, I think all of us receive plenty of emails, from people in the community when there's an issue with them. I've actually personally received relatively few on this project. So please feel free to reach out to me. We're all in contact with the city manager, and the city manager and the public works director are always in contact with the contractor. And we'll do our best to iron out the problems as they come up. I can't say I feel your pain because I don't live in Donnery Hills. I live in Donnery Estates, but I know it's hard over there. I know it's hard to get up and see that every day. You have to get through it, and it's we'll get through it though. At the end of the day, we're going to have a project, and it'll be something that'll be good for us, good for the environment. It'll be difficult to get there, but it'll be done. Is there anybody up here who has any comments or any questions of Mark? Anyone?
I would say, just so you all know, that Donnery Hills is not the only one. Phase 1 through 4 in Donnery is not getting done and then stop. There's other places that they're going to do. They're going to do Mayo Drive, and then guess what? Then they come to my neighborhood, and then they do the Druid area. So right now, this has really been pushed by the governor and the people in Tallahassee because of all the fish kills we've had, all the red tides, all the problems that started, and the governor said, we're gonna fix all this. So this is kind of being pushed by them. It wasn't Maitland saying, we're gonna do this just to do it, okay? So everybody knows, but yeah, so when this came up, we did get grants. A lot of the money is also tax money. And if I could pay this right now for my extension when it comes my time in Druid Isle, I would do it because it's going to be a lot more expensive when it hits me. So I do feel your pain, and I know what you're going to have to go through because it's coming to get me next. So.
And I just wanted to say that I think, first of all, someone said up front that we do work for the whole community, and so we know that, we're aware of that. We kind of represent different parts. I live in Domrick, closer to a lot of you, and so I do go on those streets. I used to live on Thunder Trail before, so I'm very familiar with what you're talking about, and probably for those reasons I do get more communications, maybe from some of you on this issue, and have spoken to lots of people about this, and I think that we do always have to balance that, and that is part of how these costs get decided in terms of the people in the community who already, may have converted at some other point in the past and have already paid that. This also happens in other issues. The most recent, I believe, similar payment structure was in Greenwood Gardens, which was related to undergrounding of electric. So it's not just specific to the conversion issue either, in terms of how we bill the people who are directly benefited. And I know that term benefit was also commented upon, and certainly it does have some subjective value, right? We learn very quickly up here, if we hadn't already learned it in our careers, that what we can't please everyone, and what some people hate sidewalks, some people love sidewalks, some people hate streetlights, some people love streetlights. There's literally no way that we could ever say that something is pleasing to everyone, basically, except for maybe if we went to zero taxes or something like that. And so in that sense, we understand that, but it's also a legally significant term that our lawyer has gone over with us of when that's an appropriate way, legally speaking, to assess people in that way and when it's not. And that word benefit is used also in that way as well. But as Mark said, one of those decisions that was made at some point that will please some people and not other people is when it comes to choosing your own contractors. As Mark explained, that in the communities where they do contract with specific contractors for the hookups, then the downside to that is that you don't have any choice in who you select to do that for you and what the price of that is. And therefore the price is paid somewhere either way, and as Mark indicated, in those instances, that's reflected in that assessment cost. And the decision was made, whether certainly some of you may not agree with that decision, to take way less in our assessment that we're charging to you and putting on you in allowance for allowing sort of the free market ability to contract with your preferred contractor, understanding, I hate picking up the phone and calling a bunch of people to go over costs, so I get that, but that's just kind of the tug and pull on that. And the very last thing I wanted to say that John, Mayor Lowndes addressed briefly, the communication piece. Obviously there's, as you've kind of heard, if you didn't already know, there's different players in this. There's the contractors, there's our project manager, there's all these different people, and they all have their jobs, but that obviously contributes to communication issues, and I understand that. I personally believe very strongly, as I'm sure everyone else up here agrees, that our job is to be the conduit between y'all and the government up here, and we play very different roles. And so if you email me, call me, text me, whatever, really we all, I learn something every time someone asks a question. I will not promise you that I will know the answer off the top of my head. I learn a little bit more each time. That's the favor that your questions do for me. But I will respond. And hopefully some of you know that already, and I will make sure that you're connected to the correct person, because I do understand that we're at an advantage. Sometimes we take for granted that we know exactly who to call and which person might know the answer to that, and that alone I understand is something that we know that you may not. And so please, anytime you have questions, contact me or any of us, but I just wanted to personally say that, if anything, that I feel strongly about that.
You know what, following up with what Lori just said, is I have a family member who is in phase 1, and I heard some irrigation problems here, and he had irrigation problems, like the truck kept running over his sprinklers, and he was very upset. He called me, and I called the city got on it. It's an easy fix, and then he was really happy. He was like, oh, they came out, they did a great job, everything's great. If you find that happening to you, like I said, it's an easy fix, and nothing's getting done, email us, and that's just a call, and we can get it done and follow up on it. That's what Lori was saying.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a resolution in front of us. Is there any further discussion on this resolution?
I don't want to beat this one up, but I do agree with Lori on the communication side, is that and Mark and I have been talking about this on other issues, is that in today's, not everybody is on social media or people get their information and get their updates from different sources, and updating people when we had an issue with water, when no one has a home phone, or very few people have home phones anymore now, as a primary, you can't have reverse 911s, you can't do So getting communication out, I think, is something that we are learning how to do better, and I think is evolving. And so I think that, as has been said, trying to reach out to us, trying to reach out to anybody, and as we work on sort of getting that broadcast, mass broadcast of information out, I think is something that not just our city, but communities at large are dealing with, getting information out. What's the most effective way to communicate to large amounts of people? If people came in after the initial decisions were made, maybe don't have the background history, how do we get that out? So I think that that is a valuable piece of this that I think we're hearing today, and we're always trying to work on. I know city staff is trying to work always on making themselves better, making processes better. And so I think that your comments on communication is something that I know will be heard in the future. So, because lack of response is not it can cause frustration where there doesn't need to be. So I think that's something that we can always try to improve.
Right. And I would say also to that you know, the people who work, our staff here at the City of Maitland, I've got supreme confidence in. I mean, I think they do a great we try to do, you know, the best thing. And so, you know, it might not always be the answer you want. We might miss a call, we might miss some communications. It happens in all human societies. But, you know, I really, you know, I think that the people we have working here for us in the City of Maitland are doing the best job we can. But everybody can learn. Everybody can learn from what we hear tonight. I'm sure there's going to be some learning going on afterwards. But we've got good people working for us, and their hearts are in the right place. So that's my opinion. All right. The issue before us is the resolution, and does anybody have a motion they'd like to bring on this? Move forward or not?
I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 11-2024 declaring the uniform method of collecting non-ad valorem assessments to begin on the 2025 tax bill and be collected by Orange County tax collector.
Okay, we have a motion.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Laura, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Workzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, the resolution is passed. Our next piece of business is an interlocal agreement for Central Florida commuter rail. Am I missing something? No. So,
Take a break.
if we want to take a break,
Yeah.
everybody, you can stick with us for commuter rail if you like, or we got a few other items tonight, or we can. Or we want, yeah, we'll take 5 minutes. Let's come back to order, if you would. Okay. There we go. We have, as our next item, is everybody ready? We're all good? Next item, interlocal agreement for Central Florida Commuter Rail. Mark, would you please introduce the item?
Yes, sir. As we've been discussing over the last several months, the interlocal agreement between Orange County and the City of Maitland for the Central Florida Commuter Rail, SunRail, has reached a point where a determination needs to be made regarding FY 2005 funding. As a little background, the Maitland agreement was adopted in 2007 and amended in 2011. It contemplated that the county would have a permanent funding source in place that would be sufficient to fund the city's share of the operation and maintenance costs. If alternate funding sources were in place, the agreement basically just goes away. So when the county made the run at the 1 cent sales tax for transportation, that would have been the permanent funding source that would have funded SunRail and relieved of that responsibility. However, if a permanent funding source were not in place, the city would have two options. One would be to pay a contribution that's capped at $281,400 with a maximum annual cost escalation of 3%. The other would be to opt out of the agreement under the, just FYI, under the current formula for SunRail, costs have increased, so our current share would be almost $700,000. If the council, and just as in terms of background, we've been discussing this issue with county staff for the last several months. Our first meeting was back in November. That's when they put their numbers together and came to us to show us that the operating maintenance costs had increased. The way the formula is determined is you have your operating maintenance costs and your ridership. So whatever the total operating maintenance costs are for the system, you divide that by the ridership, and that's your portion of the O&M costs. So they came to talk to us a little bit about how those costs had increased and whether we were receptive to amending the interlocal agreement to change those costs, bring them in line with the actual costs. So we had a bunch of questions for them at that time. And then we followed up with another meeting a little bit later in the year, earlier here in 2024, where we followed up to discuss alternatives. Sort of the crux of that meeting was that the Board of County Commissioners was already in discussions about making another attempt at a transportation sales tax. So as we were discussing this in the February-March range, the county was already deep into discussions on whether to put another sales tax on the November ballot for this year. So what we agreed to do is that we would sort of postpone discussions on our agreement and how that would work until the Board of County Commissioners made a decision on whether to put an additional transportation sales tax on the November ballot. With the understanding that if they did vote to put it on the ballot, then we would do an amendment to the agreement to allow us more time, because if there was if there was a ballot initiative to provide funding to SunRail, then we wouldn't need our agreement. So if the ballot initiative would pass, our agreement would be funded, our portion of the agreement would be funded, so there'd be no need to move forward with our agreement. However, and so they're willing to extend our deadline to November to make that determination if the Board of County Commissioners decided to put that on the ballot. Well, in April, I'm sure you all saw that the Board of County Commissioners decided not to put that on this November's ballot, so there is no ballot initiative, which sort of crunched our time frame under our current agreement. Because under our current agreement, we are required, if we're going to be opting out of this agreement, to give the county 120 or 180 days notice so we could negotiate what the differences are, what the issues are, to make decisions that are informed both by the Board of County Commissioners and the City Council. So to follow up on that, we met again just earlier this month to talk about options that were available to us. And I must say that our dealings with the county after our November meeting have been nothing but collegial. Everybody understands that there are issues that need to be resolved. These agreements are very complicated. They're very lengthy. There's agreements on top of agreements refer to other agreements that have been amended 2 or 3, 4 times. So it's very complicated to sort of cipher through this. And we don't have the advantage of having staff here at the city that was here when those agreements were adopted, so we don't have that institutional knowledge here, so we're just basing it on the record we have. The county struggles with that a little bit too, because some of the folks that were around when those initial agreements were negotiated are no longer with the county, so we're trying to put all the puzzle pieces together to see what the implications are. So when we met with county staff in June, we talked about these things and what the language of the interlocal agreement meant and how it would be interpreted. And so what we sort of came to the conclusion of is that the one thing that we did need was additional time. So it was suggested, I think it might have been by one of the county attorneys, that we do an amendment to the agreement to allow us some flexibility to figure things out in an interim basis and not be under a tight time frame or a time frame that would lead to us making a decision without all the information available. So Cliff and county attorney worked on some languages attached to the staff report for a second amendment to the interlocal agreement. So the way this would work would be we would have to get the county notice regardless that if we don't want to go ahead and pay the, or if we're contemplating what to do with the payment for 2025, we would have to put them on notice that we want to have a discussion, further discussion, negotiations on that. If the decision was made to opt out of the agreement, the city has to follow procedures that are outlined in section 6.2 of the interlocal agreement. This hearing is part of that. What the amendment to the interlocal agreement would do would be to allow us to provide that notice, and if the county adopted the amendment, allowed to hold that in abeyance, to basically put a hold on the procedures while we had time to figure everything out, what those repercussions are. So that's where we are tonight. We are under a bit of a deadline because 180 days is quickly approaching for July. So we need some direction tonight on where the city council wants to go. I see no issue in providing some additional time for us to figure this out, but there are some things that we would have to do in order to provide that extra time. As far as the adoption of the amendment to the interlocal agreement, it's always a timing issue there. We were meeting before the Florida County Commissioners on this issue, so we agreed to bring it to the City Council first. Cliff, I believe that this is scheduled for the July meeting, first July meeting of the Florida County Commissioners.
I spoke to Attorney Hetz, I think is his name.
Yes.
Tonight, actually, just a few hours before we got to the meeting, to find out if he had any additional information or intel for me about what he thought the elected body might do. And the best intel I could probably give you is the same that he gave me, was it's going to be on their consent agenda, which I generally take as a sign that it's going to go okay. But that was tonight, and obviously he is not going to be able to guarantee that it's going to go okay. But if, as an attorney to an attorney, when I see there's not going to consent, it is a rare event when it turns into a pain.
So that's the situation where we are at right now. If the city council is willing to just keep the agreement as it is, no action is required tonight. I would budget the appropriate amount of money in the FY25 budget to make the payment after January 1st of 2025. If you would want some additional time, which we're recommending, to figure out what repercussions are of everything that's within these agreements, then we would have to provide the county notice, and then we would recommend that you adopt the second amendment to provide that additional flexibility for us, and then ultimately notify the county that if they do adopt the second amendment, we would hold that in abeyance and then advance discussions on how to move forward with the interlocal agreement. If you have any questions, I can answer them, or Cliff. We have Brett Blackadar, the Deputy Director of Public Works for Orange County here, who's no stranger to the city. He was with the City of Altamont for a while, so we work very closely with Brett over there. He's now transitioned to the county, so it's been a pleasure working with him in both roles.
Awesome, okay. Does anybody have any questions of Mark? Or any comment?
I'll go ahead and make a comment. I know that this is a big, this is not a simple equation, and this is not a simple problem that we're facing, because there's many layers here that we have had to try and unpack, and as a council, we've each had numerous individual briefings on how this has worked and how this has gone down and the history lesson of how we got here. And I think one of the things that's most revealing to me about all of this was that when the agreement was made, we are unique in having this agreement and how our city has been sort of lumbered with this cost. And so as a person who believes in public transit and thinks that it's a very important part of a progressive city that is going to be ready for the next generation and beyond, and especially when we have so many people moving to Central Florida, the access to public transportation is so essential. I don't relish this discussion of us having to contemplate removing ourselves from the network. But we also are in a position where, as a city, we've seen massive tax cuts being given at the state level that are impacting our budget. We know that the costs for everything that we do and build in this city has gone up. And so asking our taxpayers, our residents, to fork over an additional $700,000 to try and support our position in the network, which unfortunately our station is the least used. I think it puts us in a position where we have to force the issue and we have to bring the negotiations back to the table, because it's inequitable for us to be in the position we're in. So I appreciate the conversations that are happening. I appreciate Mark for the leadership on these conversations. I appreciate that the county is working with us. But as a resident and someone who has to listen to our tax base, as well as listening to people who want to do more to improve our transportation system, we're at a crossroads, and these are not easy conversations to have, but it's also, I'm not taking this decision lightly, but I think that we have to force the issue. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in.
You know what, I'm glad you said what you just said. In talking to Mark today, I think, you were quoting the 700, but Mark, wouldn't it be close? It would be over $200,000 a year that our citizens would have to pay to keep that going if we wanted to pay for it, right?
Yeah, under the current agreement, it would be a little over $280,000.
Yeah, close to $300,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I think with ridership, when I remember seeing this a while back, the city would have, it comes out to $4.50 we would pay for each person to ride the rail.
Yeah, with any public transit system, I don't think you're going to find any of them that make a profit. So there is always a subsidy that's involved with that, and that's shared across the system. But but we would equate that to the station that does have the lowest ridership on the system. So that affects what that subsidy is.
And I'm kind of in agreement. It's kind of hard to really go to, the people in Maitland and say, hey, you don't mind paying $4.50 for this guy to ride the rail, or pay $200,000 a year. So, I mean, and listen, I totally understand. If it was somewhere halfway, then that would make sense and it would be affordable. And I totally understand that you're never going to make money on it, and that's not the goal of any city, to make money. But this is just a little too hard of a dollar amount to ask our citizens for.
I think as we move forward with this, I think you're having conversations that sound productive or with Orange County. I think that the difficult position here is that this is like a City of Maitland issue, when really this is a Sunrail issue. And I'm with, I think Sunrail will play an important part in the long-term transportation needs of the counties in general that are benefited by this. And so it just puts us in an awkward spot, because we're not supportive of Sunrail, right? We all appreciate the benefits that Sunrail has. It's just the mechanics of it, and having this be something that is now kind of been a focus of the City of Maitland issue, when really this is not. So I think as we evolve this discussion, I think hopefully that's where it goes, beyond just a city issue.
You know, maybe in that 180 days, if somebody comes up with a great idea, another idea how to fund this or something. I mean, a lot can be done in 180 days, so I would support that.
Okay. Yes, I agree with all those sentiments. I mean, to begin to take on the $300,000 burden at this point, when we're facing a lot of other budgetary challenges that we didn't anticipate this year in particular. It's just, I don't see how that's doable for us. And so what you've offered is, first is the notice of termination of the agreement. So just so everybody's clear on the very particular words here, we're not terminating Sunrail, we're terminating the agreement that we've had in place for some time. And it's not shutting down Sunrail necessarily. It's not up to us to do that. This is not our station in any case. But it is a notice to terminate the agreement we've had with Orange County. And provision was made for that, so it was entirely expected this might occur. So we will be invoking, section 6.2D2, to give notice to the county that we have 180 days now to work it out, or the agreement will terminate. So and you've also provided I think as I understand it, Cliff, you've worked on the proposed amendment to the agreement, which would allow us to hold in advance the 180-day notice.
The effect of the notice.
Yeah, the effect of the notice. And that's kind of, right.
And can I fill in some of the missing details, try to make it clear? So if we don't do an amendment, where we are is we have to provide, based on the current agreement, and if we don't intend to pay the close to $300,000, we have to provide the notice of termination. And if we don't do it now, we will run out of time to get it done before the end of the year, and people's looking for money and funding and so forth. So that was the hard deadline we were up against. So the question is, how do we solve that problem when the parties very collegially have decided we want to work it out, we can figure out a way to do it, and there may be other funding sources that can be brought to the table to solve the problem. Because again, this whole thing was, and I was one of the few people who was there when it was negotiated, it was, we're going to have the money, don't worry, be happy, but didn't quite work out. So we're still hoping, but the way it is now, if we don't do an amendment, we are in a harsh situation of, if you're not going to fund it, you better tell them that. And there are potential consequences of that we don't have to get into, but nevertheless, that's where we are. So the amendment is designed to say, we would give this notice and it'd go out, like if we said it tonight, we'd send out the notice probably tomorrow, or very soon thereafter, and have it delivered. This amendment, if we pass it, allows us, assuming the county goes along with it, to say, hey, we don't really want to serve you with this notice and start the clock running, but we also don't want to be caught with our pants down. So what we want to do is, if you're interested in keeping the conversation open, we're interested in keeping the conversation open, and that's what I'm alluding to when I'm being told by their lawyer it's on their consent agenda. So even though we would be working first, based on expectations, again, not promises, but we expect that they will adopt the amendment, which would allow us to send them a different kind of notice that says, we've made this decision to terminate, but we're going to hold that in abeyance while we continue to try to work together on a solution and see if we can find money somewhere to solve the problem. And that's in essence it. They know that we have to terminate in order to even get to the part where we're doing the amendment. But it's not our goal to terminate, our goal is to find a solution if it can be had. If not, if they were to vote down the amendment, then we would immediately make that notice operative. And then we would be on the opt-out side of the equation.
We could take that back unilaterally.
Yeah, one of the things is even in the 180 days, is if part of the basis for our termination is a shortfall in funding, and it's kind of weirdly worded, that we can provide them a list of how much there's a shortfall, in our case, $700,000, and then we're allowed to negotiate during the 180 days, even so. But in 180 days with no solution, we're done. Similarly, under this amendment, if after the next 30, 60, 90 days, no progress is being made, and it doesn't look like anything's going to be made, we can say, on us, it's our decision, yeah, we're just going to serve the notice of termination and start the 180 clock ticking. That'll be a decision that's made at the management level after consultation with members of council based on what I assume would be our progress report or lack of progress report at that time. But if you go by the tone of our last conversations with all the staff, it was all upbeat and hopeful. But now we just got to make a miracle happen.
So let's take them one at a time. I mean, so I think the first issue is really if we do nothing tonight, we're going to be on the hook very quickly for
280,000 and guaranteed 3% raises every year.
Right. So it seems to me that we do have to provide the notice of termination of the agreement tonight. And then if that passes, then we'll take up the issue. If anybody makes a motion and it gets a second, then we'll take up the issue of the amendment which would create the advance mechanism. But let's open it up to the public, because we'd love to hear from you. Public comment period.
Yeah, Dale McDonald, 108 Angelo Court, and you have one around there, John, we understand, and Clifton. So, and I think that we knew that in theory, that this day was coming. Now, we didn't expect it to exactly play out the way it has. I don't believe that as a community, that we could look ourselves in the eye to the tune of, what was it, $450 a year for a citizen. I don't think this is, and you've heard me say many times, who are we going to be when we grow up? This is growing up. And so we're going to have to pay for the services we're going to be asking for. And that's not unreasonable. We actually, Mark deals with that every day. You know, because we all want more services than we're willing to pay for. In this case, it's time to be the adults that we all really want to be. And so any chance that we can take 180 days and hold the agreement in advance for the moment and have the unilateral ability to make a decision at that point, I can't see any other solution. And just as a citizen, speaking only for myself, that's an easy call to make. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dale. Anybody else like to be heard on this at all? Now's your 3 minutes. Okay, let's close the public period and bring it back up to the council for discussion. And motion if anybody doesn't have any discussion.
I will make a motion to provide notice of termination to Orange County under section 6.2D1 of the First Amendment to the interlocal agreement between the city and county regarding funding of the Maitland station within the Central Florida Commuter Rail Transit System, approved by the City Council on April 11, 2011, and Board of County Commissioners on July 26, 2011, and directing the city manager to notify the county of this decision.
We have a motion.
A second.
And a second. Laura, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Wurzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, we will send a notice of termination of the agreement. And then let's take up the item that's next on this agenda report, which is, do we want to amend that, to propose an amendment to the county to our interlocal agreement?
I would move to adopt the second amendment to the Central Florida Commuter Rail Transit System interlocal agreement, subject to approval by the Board of County Commissioners.
That's, I beat you to it.
You got it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and just for a little discussion, and just to make it clear, I think, to the county, the way that I understand this is, we have now issued a note, or we will very soon issue a notice of termination. We can hold this in abeyance indefinitely at the city's option. This in no way jeopardizes or prejudices our rights under the agreement to terminate at any time thereafter once we pull back the notice of abeyance. If we decide that there is not productive negotiations, we will pull it back. And so it kind of leaves it all with us, and we hope the county will agree with that. And if not, they can come back and ask us for a different agreement. We can take that up as we want to. But this is our proposal to the county to work with them in the short term to find another solution, but none of our rights to terminate our prejudice. That's just my little legislative intent moment. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Anybody else have any discussion? Laura, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison. Aye. Councilmember Wurzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay. We have addressed our commuter rail issues for the evening.
Mayor,
Wait,
just
one
for
second.
clarification, can I assume that pursuant to the Second Amendment, we should send a notice of our intent to hold an abeyance if the county approves the Second Amendment?
That's the third motion.
That's the third motion.
That's the third one.
Okay. So that was-
Okay, just want to make sure we got there.
Okay. So you want to do that automatically?
Well,
Upon their approval.
I just want I want Mark to know what notices to send.
I
Okay.
think Mark's saying he wants another motion.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
There you go.
And that motion is to, again, to send it?
No.
Move to hold, I'll make it.
Okay.
Or you,
It's March
Yeah.
number 3.
Number 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move to hold the notice of termination and absent pursuant to the terms of the Second Amendment. That's some of y'all's lawyer talk right there. If approved by the Board of County Commissioners, while the parties continue to discuss options or until further action of this council, and to notify the Board of County Commissioners of the decisions to hold the notice of termination in absence pursuant to the Second Amendment.
Okay, we have a motion. On the floor.
Second.
And a second. Laura, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Wurzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, now we've disposed of our commuter rail business for the evening, right? Okay. All right, we're on to old business. Mark, is there any old business to report?
No, sir.
Okay. Consent agenda. Does anybody on council wish to remove any item from the consent agenda this evening?
So, I don't know how to do this from not removing them, but I wanted to, when you look at these two projects, item 2 and 3, and I talked to Mark about this, and I'm not sure there's a good answer, but they're expensive, and we're pulling, when you look at specifically with item number 2, the West Side Trail project, when you look at the money that we're having to move just to make that project work from other sources, I think that we are just on the starting to have to look at what we're going to move around. And I just, I wanted to make sure that we were confident that these were the projects we wanted to move all this around for. And I know there's some extenuating circumstances with grants, but we are, I think, entering into a budget season that's going to be, there's going to be a lot of difficult choices in that budget season, and I think there's going to be projects that we're going to have to choose and not choose. And I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
I'm not sure there's a good answer there, John. I'm not sure that's, I guess that is pulling them, but.
Well, we could.
But I don't.
I'm happy to have a discussion if you want to pull it down to.
I was like, I think that is pulling down, like.
I guess it is. I mean, I don't want to beat it. I mean, because I don't think there's a good answer, but I just don't. I mean, I'm sure you've all looked at it. It's a big number.
Yeah. Well, would you like to pull?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you move to any discussions?
Yeah, 2 and 3? Yes.
I mean, I think I don't know. Does anyone else share that? I mean, before I even pull it, if no one has a concern about this, then I'm not going to pull it. I don't want to waste time, because I guess my point.
The trails were on the top of our list of strategic priorities last year and this year. So we are meeting our own goals with the trails. I know sticker shock is obviously a factor, but if we're not going to follow through on our strategic objectives, then what was the point of having them? And I'm saying that, I mean,
with all due respect.
thank you, that's, yes.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
here's where I would counter that. We're giving up sidewalk projects and sidewalk repairs.
It's probably worth a discussion to have.
Yeah.
I think it's worth a discussion.
Okay.
It sounds like this is complicated enough, we don't want to, it's not
Fine.
considered material. And I don't mind, I mean, I don't think it's a waste of time, I think it's a good discussion to have. So, but my other question is, do you want 2 or 2 and 3?
Let's just do 2.
Okay.
Unless anybody wants to pull 3 as well. And if I'm alone, I have a little bit of, I don't mean to surprise on that, I have a little bit of concern about some costs.
Well, I don't think we have a choice on number 3.
3 is different, I agree, so let's just, look, I'll just limit it to 2, and then at least we can put it out there.
Okay, so now, number 2 on consent agenda becomes number 6 on decision items?
Yes.
Okay. So we have, is there anybody from the public who has any comment on consent agenda item number 3? Okay, seeing none, let's close the public period, and a motion will be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item 3 to number 2 to item 6 on the decision.
Okay. Got a motion?
Second.
Second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Moved in a second. Councilmember Guthrie?
Aye. Oh, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
I had a tie, so I just wanted to make sure.
Who gets the second?
that's easy.
Oh, I'll give it up. I'm sorry, I was looking ahead. It's coming up next. Sorry.
Councilmember Warzel? Aye. Councilmember Wild?
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie?
I already said aye.
Councilmember Paul Harrison?
Aye.
Mayor Lutton?
Aye. Okay, now is the public period, and we are opening up the public period for anybody who would like to speak to us this evening on any item that's not otherwise on the agenda that has a public period. Does anybody have anything? And this is open mic night. Anybody have anything? Nothing? Okay. All right, let's close the public period. Decisions, the fire impact fee study and rate proposal. Chief Morton is up. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Council. Just going to introduce Joe Williams and Michelle Galvin from Raptillis Financial Consultants. They're going to discuss and go over our fire impact fee study and proposal.
Answer any questions you may have. Sorry. Okay. Let me ask the names of the consultants one more time. Would you like to have them?
Joe Williams and Michelle Galvin.
Galvin?
Galvin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Thank you for having us. We made the long trip from about 2 minutes, maybe 2-minute walk down the road. So we love Maitland, great community, happy to be here. So we finished a fire impact fee study. Your last fire impact fee study was performed in 2015 or 2016. So we're going to walk you through just some of our findings, the approach, show you the recommended changes to your impact fees. They generally are coming down based on the different approach than what was implemented before. These are a funding source, generally restricted for new expansion type facilities. During the course of the study, there was not much new expansion identified, so that was part of the reason that the fee is being calculated lower. These are fees only applied to new development that's happening in the community, so again, that's relatively limited with the amount of vacant land you have versus what's already developed. So just, again, the objectives, we updated the approach, the methodology. There's been a lot of Florida statute changes to the impact fee statutes since the time your last study was done. And we feel that our approach is justified, reasonable, meets dual rational nexus test, all those things. So I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to take you through the rest of the presentation, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Good evening. As Joe mentioned, the impact fees are one-time charges applied to new development. They are established to recover the costs of the infrastructure and the capital equipment that are needed to accommodate the new growth. Impact fees do not fund replacement of existing assets unless the existing asset is removed from the fixed asset schedule and additional capacity is made available for growth. Impact fees also do not correct deficiencies in the level of service, and they do not fund the operating and maintenance costs. So the Florida statutes outline various requirements for the calculation and implementation of impact fees. These next slides show some of the major points considered in our study. So the impact fees are based on most recent and localized data. They have to be accounted for in separate accounting funds, and they're based on the actual cost occurred. You have to provide at least 90 days notice before an increase of a fee, but if a fee is being decreased or eliminated, that can be done immediately. There are also some requirements based on how much you can increase a fee. If a fee is being increased up to 25%, it has to be phased in over 2 years. If it's more than 25% but less than 50%, it's phased in over 4 years. And an impact fee cannot be increased more than 50% unless extraordinary circumstances are met. And the impact fee cannot be increased more than once every 4 years. So getting into our methodology. Here are your existing fire impact fees, split between two major groups, your residential and your non-residential classes. Residential is charged on a per dwelling unit basis, and non-residential is all billed based on a per square footage basis. So you currently have 12 non-residential land use categories, all with various fees, again, being charged by a per square foot. So the 2022 population of the city was estimated to be 19,900, and based on city development plans, by 2032, city population is expected to be 22,600, so it's growth of just under 300,000 people. We also reviewed the functional population equivalencies. So the functional population is to account for the location of your population over a 24-hour period. They include the number of trips generated, average number of people per trip, and time spent at each location. And functional population is widely used for impact fee land use demand characteristics and to identify different land uses. So we are recommending to reduce the number of non-residential land use categories down from 12 to 8. And so this table will show you on the left the existing land uses and then the proposed land uses. So you'll see the hotel, motel, inn. We're keeping that the same, recommending to change to a per room basis. We are recommending that the retirement institutional land use class be split into two, to be the assisted living facility or congregate care, and to be charged on a per bed basis. And the other side is the institutional down at the bottom. We are also recommending that the retail, leisure, outdoor be rolled into one general retail category. The industrial, manufacturing, storehouse, storage and warehouse to be rolled into one industrial category, and the church, educational, government, and public land use category be put into the institutional. So the fire impact fee is based on the current investment into the stations and apparatus. We did look at the capital improvement program, but as Joe mentioned, in the 10-year period we were looking at, there's not seemed to be a lot of demand for big expansions into the fire stations or any apparatus. So we did just look at the existing investment into the fire facilities. So you have 2 fire stations, Fire Station 48, 47, and you also have the training structure and then 16 existing apparatus. So the cost basis for the impact fee comes to the $5.8 million. So then we use that to calculate the impact fees shown here. So we have on the left of the table the recommended land use categories, and then next to that we have your existing fees, and then a phased-in approach over 2 years where necessary. As you can see, the majority of the fees are decreasing. So those fees can be implemented in the first year. They do not have to be phased in. But the office building, you can see, is the only one going up, and it's going up by 10%. So it has to be phased in over the 2-year period. And here's a local comparison for some nearby municipalities. The dark bar is going to be the city of Maitland. So even the existing fee level, 389, is on the lower end of the nearby communities. So with reducing the fee, it's going to stay on the lower ends of the comparison. So we are recommending the updated fees based on the recent and localized data. We recommend the implementation of the phased-in schedule where applicable, so just the one that is going up. And we recommend the 90 days for implementing the higher impact fee where necessary. And then Joe and I are available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions on the presentation or about impact fees generally?
Not on the presentation, but on the impact fee in general. Do we have any basis to stay where we are?
Zero. Okay. Look, I want no doubt to be left about that.
Okay.
No.
So that answers the question.
All right.
And that doesn't matter. Our census numbers, I thought our numbers were higher than that. No, that's not the mark.
No, those are the projected numbers based upon potential development in the city. We got to remember we're 95%, probably closer to 100%, 98% built out now, especially with the improved development on the west side. So it's just infill we're looking at over the next several years.
Anybody else? My only comment is I think, Cliff, you're going to have to see your bar card turned in after that unequivocal answer. You can't do that.
Sadly, it does not depend on anything in this instance.
Okay. All right.
Answers the question.
Yeah.
Unequivocally.
Okay. Does anybody let's open up the public period. Does anybody from the public have any comment on the impact fee? Okay, let's close the public period. Is there any further discussion, or does anybody have a motion?
I would move to accept the fire impact fee report with the new rate proposal as presented and authorize the city manager to introduce an ordinance at a future meeting to amend the city's fire impact fees for new construction.
Okay, we have a motion.
I will second.
And a second. Lori, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Webb.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Warfel.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. Thank you for the presentation and all your work on that. Thank you, Chief. We have several appointments now. The first being the Parks and Rec Board. Laura, would you introduce the appointment?
The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board has a vacancy as the second term of Jeremy Good expired in May of 2024. In accordance with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board Constitution, Section B, Mr. Good has served 2 3-year terms and is not eligible for reappointment at this time. 3 residents have the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board as their first choice. Mr. Eddie Baird, Ashley Moore, and Melissa Soto, and 5 other residents, the PRAB, as their second. All 8 completed volunteer cert forms were included in the packet. Council is requested to appoint a resident to serve a 3-year term beginning June of 2024.
Okay. And Laura, would you mind refreshing our memory on what the rules are for
Yes.
appointments?
So when there's an equal number of applicants for spots, they require someone to nominate them and then followed by a second and a third. If there are more applicants than vacancies, the mayor will ask for nominations from council members, and mayor and council may discuss nominees.
Okay. Thank you. First, just in case Mr. Good is listening, I want to say we appreciate his 2 terms on the PRAB. It was a job well done, and thank you for serving. So let's open it up to anybody who wants to go through the nominations first. Does anybody have anybody they'd like to nominate for this one board position?
I would like to nominate Melissa Soto.
Okay, that's one nomination. Does anybody else want to nominate anyone?
I would nominate Eddie Baird.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay. All right, so let's close the nominations. We have Melissa Soto and Eddie Baird. And I guess we're taking the order in which they were nominated. Was that? You'll okay, I'll give it over to you.
Councilmember Guthrie.
I'll go with Eddie Baird.
Great.
Was that?
So you guys, we're going through Melissa Soto first.
Oh, Melissa. Oh, I thought you said who we wanted. Yeah, it was a little confusing.
Sorry, it's just.
So that would be a nay then.
Okay. So you're just going to, we're going to go down the line and she's going to ask each of us.
Is it possible to make a comment on this process before we go further?
We could, I would imagine, we could change the rules if we wanted to. Yes, you can.
Well, I just wanted to suggest that I also think that Mr. Baird would be an excellent candidate, but I was thinking that he would be an excellent candidate for perhaps one of our other boards where we really could use his expertise as a real estate attorney.
Yes, that's a very astute comment.
To make a comment on the process, that I don't know either of these people, and I think it's awkward. I'll be good, but I've said it before, because I'm just literally reading, I've read the packet and I've read their information, but that's it. So I'd love to figure out on a future, not this meeting, how to maybe improve this so we're not just, because when they don't reach out and you're only really reading off the paper, it's to me imperfect.
Right.
I'm not saying there's a way to make it perfect, but there's a way to maybe make it a little better.
Right, I agree. It's an awkward vote. Because, yes, we appreciate Andrew.
Because, yes, everybody who's put in their name to volunteer, we appreciate it. And I know we all feel that way, and we appreciate all the volunteer boards, so it's just an awkward, because we're not really choosing somebody over another person, and we're not making a judgment as to qualifications necessarily. It's just really reading what a fit would be. With that being said,
All right. So, Lori, you got your marching orders for... Okay, so, but we have the rules we have, so I'd like...
So we'll vote.
Okay.
So who do you got first?
We had a nomination by Councilmember Hall Harrison for Melissa Soto.
So is that a first? Is that how we're doing this?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay. Councilmember Wartel, probably nominated. And Mayor Lowndes.
Third.
So there's only one vacancy.
So, yes.
Okay. So you're going to affirm she's up on the vacancy?
Yes, Melissa Soto, welcome to the PRAB.
And hey, this is a good time to remember.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Well, yeah, so we've lost a member of the community, and Hobb was a valued member of the community generally, and a great person, and public spirited, and I was very happy when she got on the PRAB all those years ago. Gave lots of important input on the system generally. A fantastic mother, and we're all going to miss her. I mean, our hearts go out to her family, her husband Chris, and their 2 children. So let's keep them in mind. Okay, so our next item is the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Laura, would you like to introduce that appointment?
Planning and Zoning Commission has 2 vacancies. The terms of Matthew Lamb and Keith Holloway both expire in June of 2024. In accordance with the Land Development Code, Article 2, Section 2.3D4 in the City Charter, members shall serve for a term of 3 years and may be reappointed by council for one successive term. They both have served 2 terms and therefore are not eligible for reappointment at this time. We have several applicants. For their first choice, we have Hillary Bressler, Gregory Hardwick, Stephen Hefner, Jack O'Neill, Conrad Stowe. Second choice, we have Eddie Baird, Ben Shepard, and third choice is Burr Stevens.
Can you go over this one more? I'm sorry. Just one more time. The applicants.
Okay. First choice, Hillary Bressler, Gregory Hardwick, Steve Hefner, Jack O'Neill, Conrad Stowe. Second choice are Eddie Baird, Ben Shepard, and third is Burr Stevens.
Okay.
We have 2 vacancies.
2 vacancies and numerous possible choices on this. So I guess we will do the same thing as last time and open it up for nominations.
I would like to nominate Greg Hardwick, please.
Greg Hardwick. Okay, does anybody else have any nominations?
I would nominate Eddie Baird.
Baird. We have 2 seats, right? So, does anybody else have any other nominations? Okay. Does that answer the question then? I think.
Just get seconds.
Okay. All right. So let's close the nominations. The 2 people nominated are Greg Hardwick and Eddie Baird.
I'll second both.
Okay.
I'll third vote.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Well,
How expeditious.
yes, that was. And I would say that these folks are both very well qualified. We're lucky, as always, in Maitland to have such qualified people who live here and are willing to step up and do these things. And welcome to the P&Z, Eddie Baird and Greg Hardwick. And I hope the other folks who put their name in the hat will stay interested. And Hillary Bressler, Steve Hickner, Jack O'Neill, Conrad Stowe, Ben Shepard, and Herb Stevens.
And Mayor, I want to say, I think somebody's coming off. Am I correct? Don't we have somebody else coming off in the summer?
Maybe, I don't have the full list in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely stay on there. I just want to do a quick shout out to Matthew Lamb and Keith Holloway. I was able to serve with both of them on planning and zoning. Keith has been the chair of it for many years, and he's done a great job, and so has Matthew. So I just personally want to say thank you to both of them for, coming out and really making this a better city. So thank you guys.
Yeah, I totally would second that emotion. Those guys are great, and they did great work for us for a long time, and I don't know how long they have to sit out, but I have to come back again. Okay, our next item is the Transportation Advisory Board. Lori, would you please introduce the appointment?
The Transportation Advisory Board has 2 vacancies. The terms of James Blackford and Cliff Tate expired in April of 2024. They've been gracious to stay on a few months past their expiration. In accordance with the TAB Constitution, a member may be appointed by council to serve one successive term. They both serve 2 full terms. Neither one of them are desiring or eligible for reappointment at this time. We do not have any candidates that selected TAB as first or second. We do have 3 for third choice, and that is Hillary Bressler, Ashley Moore, and Mr. Jack O'Neill.
Okay.
Can I, John?
2 appointments.
Before we nominate, just before we get, given that these are all third choices for these people, and given the kind of comment about just making sure people are interested and having a little bit more info, I don't know if it's worth maybe tabling this one to just to reach out. I know, Mark, you did a little bit of reaching out on this as to whether or not these were, because I know on the form you have to pick 3. If you want to pick 1, you got to pick 3. And so you don't want to put somebody on it that maybe doesn't, it's just they put it there just as a filler. And I'm not saying that that's true for these 3. Maybe they have a true intent, but maybe it'd be best to figure that out before we make this choice. So that would be my thought, because we kind of table this decision for tonight. And Mark will, I'm sure, come back with some.
I'd join you on that thought.
I've also been really spoiled to have actual transportation professionals on this board. And as much as we have enthusiastic people, none of them actually have any credentials in transportation. So it makes it a difficult thing to move forward at this time until we have maybe some more candidates.
Yeah, and that's maybe, let's chat them out and see if they have really any want to be on the board. And then, is there a way we can do some outreach, Mark, at all to see if there's any?
We can always do some outreach, see if we can scare some people up to be qualified to do this. The problem, I think the problem that we have here collectively is the board, the Transportation Advisory Board we have is incredibly qualified to do what they do, and have been for the last several years. And as they cycle off, it would be nice to be able to keep that level of expertise available to you to provide you guidance on transportation issues. So, we can search out. I know there's 1 or 2 that have cycled off TAB that I could reapproach and see if they're interested in it, or if there's any desire, I come up with a different model to approach this issue. It's really up to the city council. I can cast it as far or wide as you direct me to.
I think cast a big net.
Yeah.
Probably the way to do this would be to table it. We probably need a motion to table it.
I'll make a motion to table this.
And I'll second it.
We have a date?
I would leave the date open, if we can, until we bring it back.
Okay. Motion to table indefinitely in a second.
Do we want to ask for like an update at any time, say another month?
I'm sure Mark will get it. What, I mean, if you,
I'll let you know.
You just let us know? Okay.
Lauren, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Hall Harrison. Aye. Councilmember Waddle.
aye.
Councilmember Wurzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Mayor Lo.
Aye. Okay. We have one more board to go through tonight, the Municipal Police Officers and Firefighters Pension Trust Fund Board of Trustees. Lori, would you please introduce the appointment?
This board is a little bit different because it follows Florida Statute 175-061 and the city charter. We've had a resident member on there, Mr. Ivan Valdez. He was appointed by council in June of 2020 to serve a 4-year term. His initial term is expiring. Mr. Valdez desires to and is eligible to be reappointed. Council is requested to make one resident member appointment to serve a 4-year term. He was included in the packet. He is our only applicant.
Wow. Okay.
I would love to, Mr. Ivan Valdez.
One
I'll second that.
second.
If we're there yet.
Yeah, we're there. Second? Third, third. Yeah, I can do that without handing over. Yeah. Okay, well, welcome back, Ivan Valdez. Doing great work on that, keeping us all squared away with regard to the pension trust fund. It's been a very important thing for us citizens to make sure that we're balancing our obligations on that. Okay, that, I believe.
And I ruined this.
No, we gotta do
We have to
6.
go back to, we have number 6.
So let me try, and I'm sorry. I'm killing this. But here's my question, and we can answer this real quickly, is that I think in talking to Mark, I think as we all have, I think there's gonna be a lot of projects that are gonna be up for discussion over the next 2 months, 3 months. And what I didn't want is, because this one of the timing, we're just gonna kind of glance over this one and we're gonna say yes to it. But it doesn't stack up to the evaluation of the others. So I think what I was thinking is just, if the answer is this one is on the priority and we want to do it, well then, fine. But I think to your point, Lindsay, which is valid, which is this provides and this adds to the trail kind of the component of the city's plan, we're going to give up potentially some other projects that are in that same vein. So it's not like I'm saying, no, trails aren't important and this whatever. We're going to be forced potentially to pass on other trail-related projects. And as long as this is the most important or one of the most important trail projects, then it is what it is. But I just didn't want this one, I think it warranted at least the attention to say that when we're making these hard decisions later, we didn't just glance over this one because it's a big number. And we're moving, if you look at the agenda packet, I mean, we're moving money from lots of other places to fund this project. So, that's my comment.
Point, when I was talking to Mark about our fund financial situations that I know everyone has talked to Mark about, and we've had meetings about already, I did mention this project, not really because I have concerns necessarily so much as I did recall that in our last budget conversation when we were looking at how things were being moved around, there being a lot of questions, and I think you had a lot about this particular project, and so I was wondering if, we discussed that, and one of the things that Mark explained, not only obviously in terms of, like Lindsay said, the priority, but also the grant deadlines that are tied to this.
I'm with you.
One of the things that make it a priority, so he did answer that question for me over the phone, so. But I get why you're pulling it, because I get how it kind of like could sideways get into the budget before we vote on budget, and
Right.
so I understand.
It's a commitment that we're making, and as long as, and I get with, I asked that same thing about timing on grants. I asked if there were ways that you could keep the grants and scale the project, and if there were ways to do it, and even if you kept the whole thing but phased it out so that we weren't necessarily moving things. One of the things that is on there is sidewalks. I was telling Mark, if you're walking around the city, there's several places where sidewalks are in need of attention, and when you start delaying certain cyber projects, it has that domino, they all start to stack up. So anyway, that was why, and I know it's a late night, so I'm sorry, but that was just a thought.
My thought is, I just remember not even this park survey, the one before it. I think, Lindsay, were you part of that one when you were on Parks and Rec, the park survey they did before the one we just got? And it was still one of the top priorities, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, well, trails are always the top priority, so I'm not discounting trails. I'm just saying there are, I mean, Mark and I talked, there are potential that other trail projects are going to come in over budget, and we're going to have to make decisions on trail projects. So this is not a vote against a trail project, or not even I'm saying vote against. It's not even a question about trail projects. It's just making sure that we're confident in putting this ahead now, that this is a trail project that we are prioritizing. Because that's really what we're doing. By doing this, we're going to prioritize this trail project over potentially others. And as long as that's okay, then that's okay. But at least I thought it was worth the discussion.
I don't hear you being against it, I just hear you saying that you thought it was worthy of not being on consent.
It's a lot, because it's a
Because of
big,
these things.
and it's a big number. It's 4.3 million, pulling 1.5 from this and 700 from this, and to even get to where we would fund it. So.
I think the conversation is always important for us to have amongst ourselves, especially for the visibility to our residents, to know that we truly do think about these things at a very granular level, and we're not taking their tax dollars for granted, and we are trying to make smart choices with the money. And so I appreciate you highlighting this as a concern, and it's setting the stage for what we are going to have to do later this summer, when we are going to have a lot of really difficult conversations about what are the priorities that not only are the priorities we care about, but what are the priorities we're actually going to be able to afford. And so I know that's a difficult conversation, and I think we're going to have it sooner rather than later anyway. So.
And Mark, the conversation is that to do anything where we would redesign this or pull things out of it is a difficult task.
Well, it's not difficult. We have a deadline for our DEP grant to have the contract to them by July 1. So if we don't have that, then...
So difficult is an understatement.
Yes. Then we would lose that $340,000.
Right. So there's no way to do something where we would save money and not
lose the money, no.
And we know from prior conversations that we will continue to have, that staff has already started reallocating money towards this project.
But it's taking away from, again.
From other things, yes.
I'm good with it. This was just one that
And we hadn't voted on that yet.
didn't feel great on the. Okay. Do you want to introduce it? No. We have to do something now because I screwed it up and pulled it off.
Sir.
We probably should go to the public again, since it's now only decision item. Let's open it up to the public. Is there anybody from the public want to comment on this?
Not me.
No? No?
All right, let me get
Stacy?
this.
Good.
The rest of y'all are paid to be here.
Here we are. Move to authorize the city manager to execute the GMP, am I on the right one?
Yep.
To execute the GMP contract for the West Side Trail project sections adjacent to Lake Destiny in the amount of $1,039,319 and approve the FDP grant extensions for one additional year expiring August 3rd, 2025. It's all right.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'm seconding without the apology.
Okay. Motion and a second. Any discussion or call the roll? Call the roll.
Councilmember Wurzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Wells.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Mayor Lund.
Aye. Okay. We are to the reports portion of our agenda. City Attorney, you have any?
I have nothing.
Okay. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, I do have an item I'd like to, which I've already brought to your attention, but I wanted to put a little meet on the phones and have at least make you aware collectively of the situation we're in budgetarily. As you know, we're looking at a budget that, due to the Live Local Act, our property values are actually decreasing by 2%, with projected revenue decreases of approximately $1 million in the general fund. Because one of these apartment complexes happens to be in CRA, we're looking at a potential decrease of $700,000 within the community redevelopment area. And to give you some perspective on that, when we initially put our budget projections together, we always budget conservatively. So we budget, in this year, we're budgeting a 4% increase in ad valorem revenues based upon property values. So we're looking at a 6% swing in what we had anticipated coming conservatively and what we actually appears to have available to us. As you all know, the Local Act allows apartments that were built in the last 5 years to take advantage of some tax exemptions if they commit to providing affordable housing on a percentage of their units. We did have 2 of those apply for and receive that exemption. That's why we're looking at this situation. There is an option in the statute to opt out of this in the future. Orange County, as determined by the state, does not have a deficit of affordable housing. So there is provision in the statute that the legislature put in last session to allow local governments in those areas to opt out. So your clerk's office is preparing that right now for your consideration in the near future, so we don't have this situation facing us in the future. So as long as Orange County is not shown as having a deficit of affordable housing, or if the legislature does not act to remove this ability to opt out of this exemption in the future, we should be covered. That doesn't take away the situation that we're going to be dealing with for FY25. What this amounts to, unfortunately, is us looking at almost a recessionary budget in a non-recessionary time. As we just discussed, construction costs are still high, wages are high, unemployment's low, we have higher costs across the board. The cost of borrowing is high, so we're dealing with a challenging situation in the coming years. So just to lay it out for you, there are options available to us that Stacy and Jerry and I are discussing along with the department heads. The first thing we're going to be doing is look at further adjustments in our general fund capital budgets as we address this going forward into next year's capital plan. We'll look at additional cuts within this budget year to see if there's anything we can defer this budget year to provide some additional funding for next budget year. That would be probably more in the form of money that we would free up for future capital versus future operating budgets, but we're going to leave no stone unturned. As we work through the process, we're also going to need to take a look at what we need to do or what our options are with fund balance. We do have fund balance available to us, and how that plays out within the budget process will be determined, but we'll be looking at that also. And from a revenue standpoint, here we're also looking at, if we need to raise revenue, the only way we can actually, the only thing we have control of is the millage rate. If we need additional revenue to balance the budget. So we're looking at all fronts on what we can do this next budget year. It will be challenging. It's going to be a real challenge for us, but we can certainly do it. In terms of looking at funding in this current budget year, Kim and I were talking about a project that's currently underway, which we had discussion on tonight, the Dominic Hill Sewer Project. We do have a significant investment in sidewalks within that project. Some of those are already constructed, some of them are under construction, some of them have yet to be constructed. If it would be of any interest to the City Council, we could approach the contractor to discuss elimination of the sidewalks that have yet to be constructed to try to free up some money in anticipation of what Councilmember Wild brought up future increases in cost to free up money, but it's all a matter of your priorities. And I don't want to have to drop this on you in a situation like this, but it's going to be a challenge, and we need to step up to it, and this would be an option that we have. If you would go down this road, I think there are a few key components to the sidewalk part of the Domrick project that merit construction. We've been talking about the Deloraine connection down Deloraine, tied to Mohican. This Mohican sidewalk project is still on the capital list as a priority because it went along with the water line and grant funding to tie back into the schools. So that creates that connection. So we would at least want to look at completing that, but there are other sidewalks in the southwestern quadrant where you have some shorter runs of streets that tie back into existing sidewalks that we could take a look at. We need to talk to our contractor on the job to see what kind of cost savings we would look at, but it's a matter of whether we see those as priorities or commitments that we've made. Because we have let everyone know that if we're touching a street with a sewer project, the sidewalk's going in. We have backed off that a little bit when the initial budgetary numbers came in with this project, where we took off the ladder roads, those one-block roads on the far eastern side of the project. But we didn't understand that what we'd be facing this budget year either. So in our effort to continue to look at the budget, I want to at least throw that out to see if there's any interest in that. If there is any interest, we can ask the contractor to put those numbers in to see what that deduction would look like, because sidewalks are all general funded in that project. Sewer is not funding any of the traffic calming or the sidewalk improvements. That's all general fund money. So it could be upwards of several $100,000 to just under $1 million based upon unit cost, but I wanted to at least throw that out there as an idea.
You said even if we really needed to, and I don't think this would be popular, but the traffic calming, we could put that in later also, right?
That would be later. I'm not sure what the status of traffic calming is with the project. We're just trying to throw these numbers together so I can at least have this discussion tonight since I had you all together.
I think the traffic calming is something we should look at. I've heard mixed, I don't know about for you all, but people I've talked to on that side have had mixed comments to me about the traffic calming. And if they like, whether they like it or when they think it's actually having an impact. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Lori, if you talk to people on that side too.
It's like everything, literally. Some people like something.
Yeah, some
other
people like it,
it's the
some
worst
people
thing
don't.
ever.
Yeah, I've heard some complaints directly about it and it causing some issues with people being able to get into their driveways. And then I've heard whether or not it's actually having an impact. But again, I think some of that is a subjective assessment.
I mean, it could be one of those things if, we don't put it in now, we can look at it later. And I mean, if nobody has objections or we don't hear anything, then, maybe it's not popular to do.
If we would have asked this crowd that was here tonight, I bet they would have said take.
Yeah, the sidewalks. So Mark and I talked about this a little bit. I mean, the sidewalks, again, it does cause some disruption temporarily or whatever to people's driveways and front yards, but beyond that, I think it does provide some benefit, clearly.
And there's a cost savings.
And there's a cost
long term.
Right, for doing it now. But again, I mean, there's lots of places that don't have sidewalks that we're not addressing. And so just because it's getting a sewer doesn't necessarily mean it should automatically get a sidewalk. So I think maybe looking at the process and saying if it's otherwise should get a sidewalk because it's part of the analysis, then maybe we keep with it. But if it's a portion that wouldn't otherwise get a sidewalk, but we were doing it just because it was getting sewer, then maybe that's one that we don't do. That's what I would think. So
And
I
it
think
has some fringe benefit to the people on those projects that it does shorten the term of their,
Right.
and their yards. Like most of the questions and concerns I get on the sewer have to do with the sidewalks, the placement of the sidewalks, the trees, all that kind of stuff. So not that that's a reason to do it by any means, but in terms of the fringe benefits to
Right.
that.
So if you're asking for input, I would say yes, it's worth the discussion with the contractor to see if it would save us money. But I would not do the ones that we otherwise think meet the criteria, that we would do it otherwise.
Like Deloraine.
For quite a while.
Exactly.
Deloraine is that one.
Right.
That makes the most sense.
Right.
Okay, I'll start putting that together. Just to be thinking about this over the next couple of weeks, I'm not sure I'll be able to have this to you by your next meeting, depending on the contractor's time frame. Just the challenge always has been, some of you have been directly impacted by sidewalks, is that people will complain about them during construction, and then after construction, tell you the best thing that ever happened in the neighborhood. So it's a very emotional thing when your street and your yard are being torn up. And there are people that are currently raising issues with the sidewalk that, because of just where it is, not because it's a sidewalk, just where it is and how it's designed, that if we took it away, they might be, we didn't mean that. We meant we didn't like where it was, and we love sidewalks. And then there's the sort of the silent majority that's out there, the silent folks out there, I mean, the majority that expected that when the city council made the decision, that they would follow through with it. So there's not going to be a good way to communicate that out to everyone without going literally door to door to talk about this. So we'll do our best, but we didn't have much complaint when we took the ladder roads out. People understood that there were budgetary constraints and that those streets didn't make sense because they're all going to be within a block of the sidewalk. So just have you thinking about that as we go through this process, that you never know what's going to happen. People will be people.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's all I had, sir.
Thank you. Reports? Clerk? Nothing? Councilmembers? Anybody?
I just want to say something nice because we got a lot of bad news. All the new things that opened that, Mayor Lowndes basically had a whole restaurant experience, but there's so many great, wonderful things opening. There was a list of Orlando Week. We have like 15 restaurants to look forward to in 2024. I think we had 6, which who would have thought? So that's exciting. And my kids and Lindsay's daughter's Stuffies went to the Stuffies sleepover at the Maitland Library and doing summer reading, and there's so many cool things. And every time I do get one of those questions and I do come to Mark or Kim or anybody else, they always solve the problem right away, and everybody, in my estimation, is great. So thank you.
All right. Well, that's a happy note. I can't beat that. We're adjourned.
Now that you made me feel weird.